why cats are more psychologically complex than you think. There is an animal living in your home right now that does not fully belong to you. It sleeps in your bed. It watches you from across the room. It lets you pet it when it decides. And the entire time, behind those half-closed eyes and that slow rhythmic purr, something is happening that science is only now beginning to understand. Something ancient, something calculated, something that may have been running far longer than any of us realized. We call them pets. We call them companions. We photograph them, dress them, share them across the internet in the billions. But what if we never actually understood what they were? For thousands of years, humans have formed bonds with animals. Dogs were domesticated over 30,000 years ago, reshaped by evolution, bred for loyalty, hardwired to read our emotions and mirror our grief. They were transformed, fundamentally altered by their relationship with us. Cats were not. The cat did not come to us because we tamed it. It came because it chose to. Around 10,000 years ago, as human civilizations began storing grain, wild cats, Felis silvestris libica, simply walked out of the desert and into our settlements. Not because we lured them, not because we bred them into submission. They came because it was strategically advantageous, and then they stayed. But here is what the scientists discovered when they finally looked closely. The house cat, the animal curled on your couch this very moment, is genetically almost identical to its wild ancestor. It is not domesticated in the way we use that word, not the way a dog is, not the way a cow or a pig is. It is something else entirely. Behaviorally, biologically, neurologically, the domestic cat exists in a permanent state of semi-wildness, a kind of controlled duality, capable of affection, capable of violence, moving between both without warning. And the question that researchers began to ask, the question that kept coming back darker each time, was this: who is really in control of this relationship? Dr. John Bradshaw, a biologist who spent decades studying cat behavior, described the domestic cat as an animal still in the early stages of domestication. Unlike dogs, cats were never selectively bred to obey commands, to suppress their predatory instincts, to defer to human authority. Their brains were never rewired for submission. What they developed instead was something stranger, something that, the more you examine it, begins to look almost deliberate. The purr, for example. We have long associated purring with contentment, with safety and warmth. But the purr is not simply an expression of happiness. Studies have shown that cats purr in states of stress, pain, and fear. They purr when they are dying. The purr, researchers discovered, operates at a frequency between 25 and 150 hertz that stimulates bone density and accelerates healing. It is not just communication. It is a tool, a biological mechanism, and in some cases, it is used on us. Karen McComb at the University of Sussex identified what she called the solicitation purr. A purr embedded within a cry, a sound tuned almost surgically to the frequency of a human infant's distress call. Cats deploy this sound specifically when they want something from their owners. Food, attention, access. They learn this, not across generations, through selective breeding. Individually, each cat in its own lifetime learns how to manipulate the humans around it. Think about that for a moment. But the deeper you go, the stranger it becomes. Cats do not meow at other cats. Not as adults. The meow, that plaintive familiar sound that fills homes and videos, and the quiet of early morning, is almost exclusively directed at humans. Researchers believe that cats developed this vocalization specifically as a form of communication with us, not with their own kind. They invented a language for us to use on us, and it works every time. There is a parasite, Toxoplasma gondii, that infects the brains of rats and mice. It rewires their fear response, makes them less afraid of predators. In some cases, it makes them drawn to the smell of cat urine, walking directly toward the very thing that will kill them. The parasite's goal is simple. It can only reproduce sexually inside a cat's intestinal tract. So, it manipulates the intermediate host, the rodent, to ensure it gets eaten. The global infection rate of this parasite in humans is estimated between 30 and 50%. Yes, in humans. In people who have never owned a cat, in people who have owned cats their entire lives, studies have linked Toxoplasma infection in humans to changes in personality, increased risk-taking, reduced reaction times, altered behavior. Some researchers have speculated that it may subtly shift human attitudes toward cats. The science is still contested, still evolving. But the question it raises refuses to be quietly shelved. Are we choosing them, or are we being chosen? And then there is what happens in the mind of the cat itself. Neuroscientists who have studied feline brain structures have found that the emotional centers of a cat's brain, the regions governing fear, pleasure, aggression, and attachment, share remarkable structural similarity with human emotional architecture, more so than previously understood. They feel, not just instinct, not just stimulus and response. They form mental maps of their environment, detailed, spatial, layered. They remember. Studies have shown cats can recall specific events for years, can recognize individual human faces, can sense the emotional state of the people around them with a precision that borders on unsettling. And yet, they do not comfort the way dogs do. They do not rush to you when you cry. They watch. They assess. There are documented cases, not anecdotal, not folklore, of cats detecting cancer before diagnosis, detecting seizures before they occur. There is a cat named Oscar who lived in a Rhode Island nursing home, who began sleeping beside patients in their final hours. Doctors and staff eventually began using Oscar's behavior as a clinical indicator. He predicted over 50 deaths, with a consistency that defied explanation. Nobody knew how he knew. Nobody still does. The peak of this mystery is not in what cats do to the outside world. It is in what happens between a cat and the person who loves one. Research published in scientific journals on animal cognition revealed something that cat owners have long sensed, but could never quite name. Cats do not form attachment bonds with humans the way dogs do. Dogs, when their owners leave the room, show measurable anxiety. Their cortisol spikes, their behavior shifts. Cats do not. Except, and this is the part that stopped the researchers, some do. A small percentage of cats display what can only be described as a secure attachment style. They seek proximity. They are distressed by absence. They grieve. The rest simply wait. Unbothered, present, but untethered. Which means every cat that has ever chosen to curl beside you, to knead against you, to slow blink at you in the dark, did so without obligation, without neurological compulsion, without the evolutionary hardwiring for loyalty that dogs carry in every cell. It chose you, for reasons we cannot fully access, and somehow that is more intimate and more terrifying. We have spent centuries convinced that we domesticated the cat, that we invited it in and shaped it to our world and tamed something wild. But the evidence, piece by piece, tells a different story. The cat adapted just enough, learned our faces, our voices, our emotional frequencies, invented sounds to move us, developed a purr calibrated to the part of us that cannot say no to a crying child, looked at human civilization and decided, rationally, strategically across 10,000 years, that this was a useful arrangement. And then it sat down in our homes and watched us believe we were in charge. There is an animal on your lap, or somewhere nearby in the dark, who has never been fully known. Not by science, not by the people who raised it from a kitten, not by the researchers who have spent their careers trying to unlock what moves behind those vertical pupils. It is not tame. It is not wild. It is something the natural world has not quite produced before. A predator that chose proximity. A hunter that learned affection as a second language. A mind that operates on a frequency just slightly out of reach. You think you know your cat, but your cat has always known something about you that you have never been able to see. And every night, when the lights go out and it settles beside you in the silence, it is still watching.